Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly Armchair Kickoff. You are joining me on the Talk of the League podcast today. You're not just joining myself, though. We've got a very special guest, the first footballer of any capacity that I've spoken to during this. We've got, tell me if I'm pronouncing this club's name right, Wexford FC. Is that how it's said?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wexford FC forward Jack Doherty. Jack, how are you getting on today, bud?
I'm good, pal, and yourself. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Yeah, I'm doing not too bad. I'm doing all right. And Jack, obviously, when Keane said that he was going to get a footballer on, I had a little look at sort of your career, sort of where you play and things like that. One thing I'm really interested about is it seems like you've played a lot of different places. Obviously, you played in Ireland, you've played in England, and you've played in America. So tell us a little bit, just sort of from how you got into sort of playing football at that sort of level, and where did it first come possible? Where did it first click in your head that this could be something that you could do as an actual job, basically?
Yeah, it was as any young kind of kid growing up, like you either have a sport that you're interested in. Mine was football, really. But over here, like you play a lot of GAA too, like hurling, and I don't know if you heard of the GAA.
Yeah,
that's big over here as well. So you kind of have that or football, really, and football was my sport really growing up. All I wanted to do was play football. So you kind of there's a thing called the Kennedy Cup in Ireland. As you play it, it's a tournament under 13s. I think it's 13s. There's like groups from say Waterford, Tip, Dublin. It's like the Kennedy Cup, it's called. So every kind of county has a team in it. Like, so we play in that, and the scouts come and watch you playing in that. You get picked for, say, trials for the underage Irish teams and stuff like that. So it kind of kicked on kind of from there, really. That's where it started. And just played with my local team and stuff like that, you know. And then it kind of kicked on from there, trying to get a few teams looking at you and they talking about it. Then you're getting picked for the underage Irish setups. And that's where it started, really, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I was saying to you off air, I wish I was sort of talented enough at any sort of level for football to sort of even know how that system works. I just know in Scotland that it's sort of similar. Like you play club level, and then from club level, certainly in my area, you go to like this thing called Fife Elite, which is just sort of the different clubs around Fife, like Dunfermline, Raith Rovers, these Fife players, like the top players. They sort of form like their own youth academy, and then from there they sort of go up. So it can be quite hard. Looking at sort of your career and things like that. Obviously, you started in Ireland. You're back in Ireland now. Now I don't know how am I right in saying the Irish football season's a summer? Is it a summer league?
Yeah, we only gone halfway through our league now. We only had a break there 2 weeks ago, mid-season break for like a week or so. So we usually kind of run it from. We start in February usually, but since the pandemic, we started in March. So we go on to, I think, the end of October, November kind of. So it's different to the leagues in England and that, you know, they're in the mid-season break now, and we're kind of halfway through our season, like, you know, so it's kind of different that way, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. How's your season going? Personally, and as a sort of a club level?
Yeah, like, we've been struggling a bit to get results, kind of, you know, but our performances have been decent, and we have a new manager in now. He's in, I think this is his 5th week in, so things are starting to look up, kind of, you know. So it's been kind of hard, but it's been testing too, as well at the same time, you know, testing our mentality, see which lads kind of want to dig in and keep at it, or which lads just fall away and want to pack it in, really, you know. It's been tough that way, but like it's been a challenge too, and you're not going to learn stuff being in a team where you're winning all the time anyway, you know. No. You need to test yourself the other side of it, see how you react from negative results or challenging times, you know. So it's been a different kind of season, but look, I enjoy playing every year, you know. Once you start coming to an age where you can't really play anymore, you kind of look back on it then and see. So look, while you're playing, it's just have to enjoy it, really, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what about on a personal level? Are you having a decent season?
Yeah, look, I always go into every game and I want to improve on it. On a game, say if I had a good game last week, I want it to be better this week. You know, I always want to improve on something small, like just myself. I always try to improve, and I never kind of settle on say if I had a good game, I'd say, look, I could have done better here or there. I'd never really be one to say, oh, I was brilliant this week and I'm just going to take the week off. Like, you know, I want to just always kind of improve, like, as much as I can, really, you know. So I'd never really kind of sit back and admire anything. I just want to always try to get better, like, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely no, and that's a great mentality to have. Obviously, if you want sort of the mentality you need to even play at any sort of level of sport, but certainly at the level you're playing at. And there's sort of any look at your career. I was looking earlier, obviously, at all the different clubs that you've played for. You've been at a lot of different clubs in Ireland, obviously. There is one big move that sort of stands out early on in your career when you came across to England and you joined Ipswich Town. How did that sort of move come about, Jack? How did that conversation happen? And
yeah, I was doing well with the Irish underage. I was in the under 18 setup at the time, and we played the England C team in Cork in Ireland. We drew 1-1. I scored in the game, and happened to be a scout at that game, and he came to watch me the week after. I played it up in Longford with Waterford, and I happened to score again in that game. We won 2-1, I think, and they just invited me to a pre-season. You know, they were in Ireland, so they invited me up for the week, and I went in training with the first team. And Mick McCarthy sat me down and kind of just said they'd be looking to kind of bring me over. It all happened really quick. You know, it was kind of I was kind of going up there really just look and enjoy it. If I don't get anything, I don't get anything, but just enjoy the experience. And I done well up there because I didn't really have any pressure on myself going up there. So they just happened they wanted to sign me, and then it just happened from there. You know, I just got a phone call a few days later, and they wanted me over. So it all happened really too quick, to be honest. You know.
Yeah. And how old were you when that move happened, Jack?
I was only turned 17, I think.
Wow.
I was 17 turning 18, I think.
Yeah.
So I was in around first team over here playing, and I was doing well, and you know, you just going out enjoying every game. I was just young, kind of, and you know, just looking to improve and looking to try get a move like that, really, you know.
Yeah. And was that always sort of the goal? Playing in Ireland, were you quite content playing in Ireland? Would you have been happy? Obviously, you put a lot of your career in Ireland anyway, but it was always a goal to at least go to England and give it a go. And obviously, you went for quite a decent chunk of money to you and I, splashing the water to football clubs. But yeah, it was always a goal to get to England and sort of challenge yourself at that level. As you always say, you always want to improve. So has that just always been something in your mindset? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's like anything. You always kind of want to try get to the top in any kind of sport you're in. Although like it was a championship, there's still another level to go to with the Premier League. But still, like I did want to go to England and see what it was like and challenge myself. And although I was young and I didn't really look back on it now, I didn't really take in the surroundings I was actually in. You know, I just kind of went over and I didn't really appreciate where I was. Kind of, you know, I just going in and I just see lads that are local and they live near the club, and that is just like, for them being over there, it's just like me being around here playing, you know. It's kind of, they just go home to their family and stuff like that. So I was kind of trying to make up time off the field, really. Like, I didn't really look back on it now. I wasn't really in the right frame of mind, living on my own and stuff like that, you know. So it was hard that way, but I learned a lot being over there, you know, and experiencing things and being around different players and stuff like that. It was a good experience, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Keane pestered me to ask this question when I was speaking to him earlier on. He wanted just to touch a bit on sort of Mick McCarthy and what it was like, obviously working under him, and what did he sort of do for your career?
Yeah, he's fairly straight and ruthless. You know, he's just the way he is. You know, he's the best manager I had. Like, really, you know, as in stuff he's done and stuff like that. You know, he's straight up. There's no beating around the bush. If you have a bad game, he'd tell you. If you were good, he wouldn't really praise you now, but he'd say something, and he'd say like you were half decent today, and you'd be taking that as a compliment anyway.
Yeah.
But no, he was great. Like, and look, he's hard on players, but that's just the way he is, and people play for him anywhere he's going, anywhere he's been. He's getting results. See, with Cardiff last year, they were struggling until he came in, like, and he gets some rally, and he just knows the championship inside out, like, and one of the years I was there, they got to the playoff semi-finals with probably one of the lowest budgets in the league they had for the championship, you know. So Norwich beat them that year, but they ended up getting promoted as well. They had the likes of Cameron Jerome, Wes Houlihan, all them, you know. They had a great side, so they wasn't really expected. But it was only 2-1, so look, he got the best of players that weren't half as good as players in other sides, you know. But he did have good players there too, you know. He had the likes of Tyrone Mings, who's obviously England international now. He had McGoldrick there, Darryl Murphy, you know. He did have good players there as well, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you think because he was so sort of ruthless and things like that with these, well, you say his praise was very dry, it wasn't sort of like he wouldn't call you amazing and fantastic and a world beater. Do you think that sort of helped your, obviously with your state of mind, you seem like a very sort of driven guy and someone that always wants to improve. Do you think that's why you sort of took to him so much and learned so much, because you sort of bounced off each other? Like his praise was like, yeah, okay, you've done well, but you know there's stuff to improve on.
Yeah, see, he did have that kind of tune, but then he had TC, who was the assistant manager, Terry Connors, who would be a kind of fellow who put his arm around you. So they kind of worked off each other. So he did have good people around him too. You know that, like if you got a Balkan or something where TC come around and he put his arm around you and say, look, just get on with it, really, and he give you praise in a different kind of way. You know, so it was kind of, some lads, it's hard for players nowadays, even like you see yourself, even some of the younger players now coming through and stuff like that, it's they don't know how to take as much criticism, where when I was coming through, kind of you be around lads who really drive that into you, like, and they really get onto you, you know, so you have no choice but to just get on with it, really. But nowadays it's kind of, lads are more soft and stuff like that, you know. It's, you have to be able to deal with both sides of different people, you know, and management is tough that way. So he did have that great aura about him, and players just loved playing for him, really, you know.
No, absolutely. And speaking on sort of the management and coaching side of things, is that something you can maybe see yourself doing in the future? Is it something you want to do, or are you sort of quite happy with playing and then moving on and doing something else and maybe staying out of the coaching side of football?
Yeah, no, when I was in America, I did a little bit with the kind of underage, with small kids and stuff like that, because they wanted a few of the first team players there, kind of just helping out the management and stuff like that for the younger lads. And I did enjoy it, but it's not something I would do straight away. I will eventually like to go in and help out younger kids, maybe work with forwards or something, because I'm a forward or something. I'd like to do that, like, kind of, I'm not too sure, really. I've thought about, like, I'd like to help the younger lads at the minute, but whether it's going up the age groups and stuff like that, I'm not really quite sure yet what way I want to kind of do it. If I want to be like a position kind of coach, or just work with the strikers or something like that, you know, I'd like to do something like that. But yeah, look, I would like to help out lads and stuff like that, or even if it's something to do with people that look to go over to England, that are young players, were with the way I was at the time, you know, and see if they might get something out of just talking to me, a bit of a voice, or they might pick up something where I kind of missed out on going over. I just kind of went over not knowing really what I was going into, you know. So I'd like to help out players that kind of way as well, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. People in the comments, if you do have a question for Jack or anything like that to do with his football, his career, or anything, just feel free to ask, and I'll get it up and we'll probe him for an answer. You touched a little bit on America there. You can see in your career. Let me have a little look. It was in 2018. You got to move to is it Lansdowne? Is that what they're called?
Lansdowne, boys.
Lansdowne. Could you have gone to a more Irish-sounding American team? How did that come about? How does a lad from sort of playing in the League of Ireland get a shout to go over to America?
There's a lad there's a few lads playing in the League of Ireland that are actually out there playing at the minute, you know. So I played with a lad who's from my area too, Darryl Kavanagh. He was out there, and he was kind of wanting me to come out there for a few months and see how I get on out there and stuff like that. And I just took the chance. Our season was kind of over, so I said I may as well. I'd go out for a few months and see how I get on out there, and I enjoyed it. Like, it was a good experience in New York. You know, it's big city.
Big city, yeah.
You know, it's another experience, really. It's seeing a different part of the world, you know. It's great that football can get you to see stuff like that, you know, places you might never have thought you might go to or anything like that, you know. But it was great experience out there, and different way of football as well out there. They're actually quite good out there, you know. They've a lot of players that are good on the ball. They're a lot of technical. They're really technical out there, you know. They like to pass it and play. Where over in Ireland, it's kind of more physical than it would be out there, you know. So it was good to see that side of it as well, you know. A lot of foreign lads out there that are real very good technical players, so they've no right but to get in and try play the way they play. It's great that way, you know. It's different experience too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very much like Scotland. I imagine the League of Ireland's quite a physical league, and sort of second touch as a tackle if you're not a brilliant technical player. That's sort of what I was going to ask, but I think you might have answered it. Is that sort of what varies the most from between playing in Ireland, playing in England, and then obviously playing in America in terms of what's different? Is it just sort of like the technical level that it's a lot less physical when you go over there?
Yeah, it's like England and Ireland, Scotland really is all the lower leagues anyway are definitely more physical leagues than the higher you go up. Obviously, you play with better quality and the game is a lot quicker and that, you know. But over there, you see, they play on a lot of artificial surfaces, so the ball, you have no choice but to try get the ball down and play a bit of football, you know. So, and they do, to be fair, they've a lot of good technical players out there, and like Spanish lads are out there, a lot of Mexican kind of, that South American kind of players, a lot of them are out there too, you know. So they are quite good, like, and they don't like really the physical side of it. So that's where a lot of the lads coming over from the UK and that they seem to do well. Centre backs and big strong midfielders, they do well out there because they're a lot physical and stronger than the other lads, and they can actually play a bit as well, you know. So a lot of foreign lads do. A lot of lads from over around here, they do well when they go out there, you know.
That's actually really. I didn't realise it was a sort of something that a lot of sort of League of Ireland players do. That there's a contingent of players that sort of get the chance to go over there. But I suppose, like you said, it's a new life experience for these players that maybe normally wouldn't get the shot. They might get the chance to go to England or Scotland, but to get a chance to go to America, it's really good, and it definitely speaks to what you say, that football just gives you a chance to see sort of different parts of the world, because there's. I imagine when you were sort of in at Ipswich and things like that, you never sort of dreamt that one day you would be playing in the middle of New York City. No. So, that's certainly a big switch up. I am really interested, Jack, in terms of like players that you've played against. Is there anyone that stands out in terms of like a top player, or someone that maybe was as a youngster, or maybe just was when you played against you was just sort of a level above and has gone on to be something? Whether that be in Irish football, whether it be in America, whether it be sort of in England.
Probably the most one that sticks out because he's done so well this year, the last 2 years really, and he's been the talk really of the England side now in the Euros it's probably been Jack Grealish really. Yeah. You know, we I think we were under 16s. He started off with the FAI, like he came over to our, we played an in-house kind of challenge game. They picked then the squad from that, you know. He came over on a trial for that, and he was decent. He was decent then, you know. He wasn't beating up any trees or anything like that. But he was good. He was technically very good, but he wasn't as quick. He's obviously after coming on, and he's world class now, really. You know, he's a joy to watch, you know. And I kind of you could see by him stuff he done in training. He was so technically, he was very good, but. Look at him now, like he's probably the one that really does stick out a lot. Like, and to be fair, I got on well with Tyrone Mings in Ipswich as well. We kind of came in similar times, really. You know, he came in not long after me, so I kind of got on well with him. You know, and he's after coming on a lot too. You know, probably you have to like. So I played against Sterling in an underage game years ago as well. Like when it was at QPR, so. Yeah, you come across lads and you only realise when you actually look back and you follow them, they're after doing so well. Another player played against Memphis Depay with the Netherlands. They bet us 3-1. He was unreal. He scored a hat-trick in one of the games.
Wow.
I still have my dad used to keep all the match day sheets, you know, when you're at a
Yeah.
game, the international games, they just give you a sheet of paper and you've all the list of players on it. He's
Mhm.
on it there.
Wow.
Look, you come across lads like that have done so well now, you know, and you kind of look back on it then and you're saying, you small little things that stick out to you when you play against them, but you can't really remember everything because it's a good few years
Yeah.
ago, you know. But look, you got to share the same picture of them and stuff like that, and you see the way what they're doing now, you know, it's crazy, really. Like,
Absolutely. Oh, it's certainly a pub story anyway, isn't it? Like one time I played
yeah,
against Memphis Depay. Is it just sort of a case, because as I've said a few times, I've never been at that sort of level for football. Like I've played club level and that's literally about it. It just sort of localized. And then obviously is there something that stands out even at that age from those players that just makes you think these players are special? That just thinks that, because I know over here speaking to people that obviously are involved in football and
yeah,
stuff like that, or any of my mates that play football at a decent level or have played against players of a decent level, they always say, "Oh, I played against him and he was just the class above." Like you could just tell he was going to be a
yeah.
superstar. He was going to be great or something. Is that something that always sticks out, or is it just a case where it's like, yeah, they were okay, but then it's sort of hard work and dedication that sort of brought them forward?
Yeah, you do see lads with that little bit extra that have, you know, they do things quicker when they get the ball and they know where they are on the pitch and they can see things before anyone else can really see it. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is coming down to hard work, dedication, sacrificing a lot for football. You know, people forget, like, a lot of these fellas that play football from a young age, they're giving up their whole childhood, really. You know, you're not out drinking with your mates, you're not going out to
Yeah,
parties, you're missing weddings, all these kind of things, you know. So they do sacrifice an awful lot to get where they want to be, you know. So a lot of it is hard work, dedication, sacrifice, but you do have to have that bit of quality as well, you know,
yeah,
and you do have to have that bit of X factor about you. That's something that no one else has, because when you're over there, there's a lot of lads coming in on trials every single day, you know. So
I imagine.
you have that certain percentage that do make it, and it's a cutthroat game, you know. It's a ruthless game, and you have to have that little bit something about you that no one else really has, you know. So a lot of it, a good bit of it's down to luck too, where you are, who, if the right manager likes you and stuff like that, you know, they kind of bring you under their wing and
Mhm.
they give you that appearance, and you might just kick on from there, you know.
Yeah,
it is though.
a
You
lot of
have
it
to
can be
have something about you as well,
circumstance.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to have that sort of bit of raw natural talent. We've got a couple of questions here. A question from Reese. I might have answered that anyway. He says, "Who was the best player in the Irish international setup? Just sort of when you were growing up, who was the best one that sort of stood out?"
Uh, best player, the best player. Jeez, I would say he only played with Grealish for a little bit, so
Mm,
I wouldn't.
mm.
I'm not going to really say him. I would say probably who's after doing decent now would be probably Alan Brown. I'd say
Yeah,
he's playing with Preston now. He's our
yeah,
captain the
yeah,
last few years.
yeah,
He kind of went over to Preston similar time I went over to Ipswich. So
yeah.
look, he's done well for himself, and he's in the setup there as well, you know, and he's scored a few goals this year with the Ireland international sides. I'd probably say Brownie. Yeah, he's been one of the better players.
Nice, nice. And a question from Tim here. He says, "How did you find the coaching in America? The criticism in the past from foreign players has been that the coaches and training sessions aren't technical enough."
Yeah, I see. Know where I can see where he's coming from with that question. Really, you know. Yeah, they're a bit behind that way, but their intentions are that they're going the right path. You know, they've a lot of lads coming over from like to the UK and that now that want to go over to America because the money they get paid over there is good for coaching and all that. So it gives them
Mhm.
the pathway there, and you see the likes of Phil Neville gone over there now with into Miami and stuff like that. You
Yeah,
know, it is going the right way. It does take time, you know, and they
yeah,
are like at the end. Football is not their number one sport over there. You have the
no,
NFL, you
number
have
four.
basketball,
Yeah,
miles. Like I'd say they're probably 4 or 5
yeah,
down the rankings. The MLS, you know, it is a mile off that way, but it will get better. Like the more they invest into it, and the more big name players go out there and stuff like that, a lot of lads will want to keep going out to America, you know, and it'll be the same for coaches and that. But they do have a bit to go, but they will get there, I'd say, because they have money and the funds to pump it into it. So
exactly, yeah. At least they're trying to grow the game, aren't they, rather than sort of kill it from the inside, which we've seen a few clubs tried to do over this way over the last few months. A question from Ailey here as well. What was your personal best game as a forward, and how does your form affect you sort of game to game, like mentality wise?
Yeah, I'm fairly critical on myself a lot, you know. Even if I had a good game and if I done something, like if I made a bad pass or something in the game, I'd be fairly critical. But once that game's gone, really, I don't really think back on it too much, you know. I kind of just try to focus on the next game because they come really quick, you know.
Yeah.
Every Friday we play over here, so it's every Friday night. So once Saturday come, I might reflect on it a small bit, but I don't really look back on games too much. I just try to focus on the next one and try be the best I can again. I always, when you go out to the pitch, personally, I try to be the best player on the pitch every week. You know, whether don't matter who you're playing against, I just always try to be the best player out there. But you have some players leave it affect them an awful lot longer than others. But I don't really reflect much on games, to be honest. Really, if we win or lose, you know.
No, fair enough. Now we could literally talk about sort of League of Ireland football and sort of your footballing career pretty much all night, but I do want to just obviously move on with the show a little bit. Have you watched? I'm not sure if you're one of these people. I know there are people sort of in football and things like that don't watch football. Are you one of these people, or do you tend to sort of consume as much football as possible, especially with the Euros on?
I watch kind of every game that's on.
Yeah.
I watch. There's nothing really on my telly on football, really, you know. If there's no football on, I try to watch a bit of golf or something like that. It's all sport, but I'd watch any kind of football game, to be honest. Yeah.
Perfect. So that leads perfectly into this question. And what's been your sort of football moment of the week? I asked the panelists last week. I'm going to try and make it a thing that every time someone comes on, I'm going to ask them. In the last week, what's been their favourite moment, either on the pitch, off the pitch, to do with football?
As in, like, the games I watched, is it? Yeah?
Just like your football moment. So could have been a goal, could have been a result, could have been a celebration, could have been a transfer, anything.
Football moments.
Yeah, just of this week.
Yeah. This week.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed the game the other night, France and Portugal game. It was a good game, actually, you know. See Ronaldo get the two, kind of equal the record. Really, that was kind of a real standout moment recently, you know. He's just a phenomenal player, you know. Stuff he's doing is crazy. Like 109 international goals.
Yeah,
he's a freak, you know.
He absolutely is. No, that's a great choice. I mean, as much as I don't know, as much as I'd like to say Luka Modric's goal against Scotland, that broke my heart. That really broke my heart. I don't think I could deal with that. Moving on a bit to talk a bit more Premier League side of things, Jack. Now you are a Liverpool fan, that's correct, yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect. So looking back sort of on the last season, I've not actually spoke to a Liverpool fan really, apart from sort of bantering them on Twitter. But actually having a conversation with one of them on sort of the last season, what are your opinions and sort of how Liverpool's season went and where can they go from next season? So what went right, what went wrong, and how did they improve on that? Because obviously it wasn't the season that a lot of fans were expecting.
Yeah, no, look, the injuries did kill us really in the one position. You know, you're never going to get so many injured players in one position, so it's kind of hard that way. And Liverpool are not a team that go out and splash heap of money like the bigger clubs and like the likes of City and that. Like, you know, they'll spend, if one of their top players get injured, they'll probably spend money on him. Like, where Liverpool don't operate like that, you know. But look, that did kill us. And Van Dijk is going to be a loss out of any side, you know, and stuff like that. But I don't know. They just seem to be a bit tired, really. You know, they've been. Klopp has been demanding so much out of them players for the last 3-4 years, you know, and it's going to take a toll. You have to keep refreshing the squad all the time, you know. He wasn't really expecting coming into the season to have all them players out injured in the one position too, and they're key players too, you know. So it's going to affect the team that have been doing so well the last few years. They've dominated the league the year before. They won the Champions League, stuff like that. And when you're missing key players like that, it's going to affect the squad. But look, they did well to get Champions League at the end of the day. They were struggling there, and I didn't think they were going to get it there at one stage. But luckily, that Leicester kind of dropped off a bit, like they did the last 2 years, really. So look, it was great to get Champions League at the end of the day because they needed that to bring in fresh players, and players will want to just play Champions League. And if you didn't get Champions League, it would have been harder to try buy players in this window coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been really tough for Liverpool to get sort of more top talent in to help them, and obviously it was a great escape almost after sort of losing six on the bounce earlier on in the year to then come back. They just caught it sort of maybe one game quick enough. I reckon if they'd lost one more game, it maybe could have been, or it probably would have been curtains. One thing I always say about sort of Liverpool in the last year and things like that, do you think Jurgen Klopp sort of built the rod for his own back by selling someone that played so many minutes like Dejan Lovren and then not bringing in a centre back? Do you think Jurgen Klopp was almost asking for this sort of issue to occur? Because he was so instrumental to Liverpool for 2 years, good or bad. He was constant in that side. And when Van Dijk came in, he looked really good, and there was flashes where he looked really good. Do you think he sort of built the rod for his own back, as I say, by selling him and then not bringing in a replacement?
Yeah, I do and I don't, because he had kind of Joe Gomez there, and you could see that Joe Gomez was Van Dijk's probably one of his best partners, really, and he was a young lad too, and he still is a young player, and he was coming on leaps and bounds, and they look great together, so you can't say that like he was trying to pave the pathway for maybe Gomez to come through and be his number one with Van Dijk, but then he got the freak incident what done his crucial with England and Trent, so you kind of have to take the good with the bad there. It was kind of Klopp's decision to get rid of Dejan Lovren, and then he had Matip there as well, but Matip is not reliable. He's always injured, so you can't really rely on him. And then to bring through the likes of Phillips, who never really played with Liverpool, he was on loan all the time, and you have the young lad Williams there too. So it's kind of a big ask for them to step up then when you really need them, and they haven't really played much. So look, it was kind of, I think it was one of them freakish seasons where they just picked up too many injuries in the one position, really, and I don't think they'll make that mistake again, really, They'll have to have backup there, or otherwise you'll see like what happened this year. They won't challenge, because teams, the likes of City, Chelsea even have a great squad. United are going to build. All these teams are going to keep buying players, whether they're in the squad or, if they come in, they're not going to be much of a gap between the players that play every week and then the players that don't play every week, where Liverpool there was a huge gap, so that's where they took the punishment, really. Then they barely got into the top four, which was kind of an escape, really, so they were blessed, really, that way, I think.
Yeah, no, and sort of it was their quality players that pulled them through. Obviously, Salah had another fantastic season, sort of under the radar, despite how many goals and things that he scored. It was definitely a more under the radar season. I don't think many people were talking about sort of how good Salah was, but without Salah, at Liverpool wouldn't have been anywhere near in the last year. No. In terms of looking at that front three, obviously it misfired and things this season. Do you think it's maybe time for a change in that front three to maybe move on and freshen it up? Because as Firmino's not been the same player over the last 18 months. He certainly seems like a player that was benefiting more when there was crowds in. But he seems to have even lost sort of his mojo off the ball and things like that as well. He's maybe not being as effective. Do you think maybe the front three is getting a bit stale and maybe needs one of them or maybe two of them need to be moved on? Because obviously moving on Salah it doesn't seem like something Liverpool would ever want to do. No,
I wouldn't say it. I'd say Salah will be the one that they'll have to keep, because he's produced every season. He's 20 plus goals most seasons is some record for a kind of wide forward, really. He's not an out-and-out striker either. So I think they do need to get an out-and-out forward, centre forward, really. But the way Klopp plays, Firmino is nearly Klopp's number one player on the team sheet every week. He loves Firmino. So, but look, you have Jota there as well. I think Jota will be good as well. He had a few injuries this season as well, but he's playing every week for in the competition with Portugal, and they have some serious forward players, so he's going to be another player who's going to be chomping at the bit really to get going this year as well, so I do think they do need a centre forward really, and probably another wide player. There's talks they're looking at that young lad from PSV. He's with the Netherlands side, Malin. So look, they will be linked with a lot of players, but they do need to freshen up the forwards really. I think because they'll get rid of the likes of Origi, Shaqiri, and that. You need quality coming on as well. So I do think there'll be a few changes there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there probably has to be changes, especially obviously what's going on in the last year. It looks like there's going to be a few players moved on, and like you said, bringing that gap between the first team and the bench sort of closer, because as you said, the Klopp didn't have many other choices but to play two of that front three in every single game, because the drop off in quality of Minamino, Shaqiri, and Origi was just nothing near that level. So they couldn't rely on them to go and win games like week in, week out on their own. No. So
you see the way like City, they just rotated their squad all the time, and they kept winning because you drop probably Mahrez, you're bringing in Bernardo Silva, you're bringing in Foden, like you're bringing in Sterling. They're all similar quality, and like they're just getting a rest. Really, they're just playing. Like one fella played this week, one fella played next week. He'll play maybe a cup game. He's keeping everyone happy really, because they're playing all the time, because they're similar quality players. You're not really dropping the standards, so you're kind of that's where they gain an awful lot than other clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think City, obviously, with who they're looking at signing, with being linked to Harry Kane, if they get Harry Kane, the league's finished. There's just not a chance that any team catches them playing Harry Kane. I don't care how well Liverpool play. And now, obviously, Liverpool have already done some business. I don't know if it's been formally announced or whether it's just sort of through the grapevine and Fabrizio Romano has said it, but they've obviously signed centre back.
Kanate,
from Leipzig. So that's good from a Liverpool point of view, like to get some business out the way early. It shows a bit of intent. It obviously shows that Klopp knows where the problem area was. Yeah. And it was at centre half, and it still is at centre. I think Joe Gomez is a fine centre half, but I don't think he's a top centre. Like, I wouldn't be confident of Joe Gomez playing many games without Virgil van Dijk beside him. Whereas Kanate with Van Dijk Kanate without Van Dijk could be a bit more confident. Are you sort of on that wavelength as well? Do you think Kanate comes in and starts straight away, or do you think he's maybe just sort of slowly intertwined and, like you say, that rest and rotation?
Yeah, it's hard to know what way Klopp will do. You see the way he integrated Robertson and stuff like that. Fabinho, he kind of gives him that bit of time, really, But he'll have I think he probably will play him and Van Dijk centre half, because he seems to be the next thing. There's raves about him, your man that good friend with Klopp, who's involved with Leipzig. Yeah. He said he can even go on past the top teams in the Premier League, the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid and that, so I do think he'll be the next big thing really for Liverpool, as in partnership wise with him, Van Dijk there. I think anyone playing with Van Dijk is going to improve an awful lot anyway, because he's a phenomenal player,
he's ridiculous.
He makes everyone look so good around him too, You see that Liverpool never got trouble down the left side really, because you had him there with Robertson. Trent wouldn't be as good defensively as Robertson, so you kind of get a bit down the other side, but Trent gives you so much going the other way as well. He's a big loss for England really. You see their creativity, they're not really creating much from the wing backs, and they were talking about leaving them out, and Kyle Walker and them are good players, but they're not half as talented as Trent is. He's a serious player.
They don't have the on ball ability and sort of that dead ball special. It's not even a dead ball. It doesn't have to be. It can sort of just be the way that creates space. He can move the ball very quickly, and it doesn't have to be a ball that's in the air for 6 seconds that allows the defence to watch it and move into play. It can be flat and it can get into the chest of the player, and if the player's good enough to run on. Keane asked a good question there. Do you think Gomez could be moved to right back and Trent played in midfield? You always see Liverpool fans talk about on Twitter and things like that Trent could play midfield. Do you believe that, or do you believe that sort of right wing back?
I don't know, because in the middle of the pitch, it's a lot different because you're back to the goal the whole time, where he's picking it up from right wing back basically, and he's coming onto the ball all the time, and he's the pitch all in front of him, where if he's receiving the ball when he's back to goal the whole time, it's so hard to, if people are pressuring you, to get turned and try play them passes he plays.
Yeah.
You'll have to kind of go back to the centre half to make another angle to get it again. So it's, I don't know, Southgate and them were saying as well on Sky that he could see him going in around the middle as well, but it's hard to know. Like, he's been getting so much ball out there that, and he's, as I said, he's coming onto the ball a lot, and he can see everything in front of him. It gives him a different picture than playing in the middle. It's hard playing in the middle, like, so I don't know, like, he has the ability to do it, but whether Klopp likes him in there or like, Klopp will want him playing where he thinks he's best for the team, so he might just keep him at right back. I'm not too sure, really.
Absolutely, and I think Trent sort of being as good as he is a big reason why that maybe Liverpool's midfield hasn't blossomed in the last 2.5, 3 years, is because how good the team's been. The standout midfielder, you would say, has been Fabinho, and he's just sort of breaking up play and moving it on. It's not really been a creative outlet, and that's just because the way that Trent and Robertson play, obviously, they go round the midfield and they go over and they get the ball into the box quickly. Speaking of sort of the transfers and things that Liverpool could do, would you like to see another or maybe two midfielders brought in to come and help the team? And if so, who? Anyone that you think would do a great job?
I've been liking the links with Tielemans, to be honest. I like Tielemans. I've always liked him, even when he was at Anderlecht and that. I followed him a lot. He's a great player. I think he'd be a good fit for Liverpool because he's different to the players that we have there as well.
Yeah, he is.
And he's kind of similar to Thiago in a way, but he'd be quicker than Thiago, kind of breaking the lines and stuff like that, where Thiago is more of a possession kind of based player, which he's a quality player, He's just different to the players that we have there already. They've been linked with a few like him. They've been linked with the man from Germany as well, the Gladbach centre mid. He's a young lad too. City, nice.
Neuhaus,
yeah.
Neuhaus,
I haven't seen him play, so I don't really know. I don't really watch too much of the Bundesliga, to be honest. And if I was watching it, I watched the kind of Bayern Munich or Dortmund. I wouldn't really watch much of the Gladbach now, to be honest. So I can't really comment on him. But I would like someone like Tielemans. I would like at Liverpool, to be honest.
It just gives you that extra sort of energy in midfield, doesn't it? And he would certainly replace Gini. I think that's a massive loss for Liverpool this year, is to get Gini Wijnaldum's a £40 million midfielder, and they've lost him for nothing. And unless they get someone like a Tielemans in, you need two players to come in and replace him. And I do think that's where Liverpool could struggle. Obviously, you've been linked with Patson Daka and things like that as well for the upfront side of things. So it'll certainly be interesting to see where Liverpool go. If you were to make an early prediction now in terms of how you think next season's going to go, what are you thinking? Do you think that being back up there and challenging, or do you think consolidating for the Champions League?
Yeah, no, I think they'll be one of the teams that will be able to challenge City. I think again, I think you keep a lot. Like, we've been lucky really before this season with not having many injuries to our key players. This last season was kind of the first season where they had that really, and they've been tested big time with that. So I do think if they keep a lot of their key players fit, they will be up there challenging again, because you could see it over the last couple of years. City struggled against Liverpool, and Liverpool were able to maintain that winning every week and getting results and not dropping many points, where teams around City, like United and them, they've been dropping a lot of points in games where they shouldn't have been really dropping points to them teams, where Liverpool had that mentality. Before Liverpool were like that, we used to beat the big teams and kind of drop points to the not so big teams. And since Klopp came in, we've got past that, and only till last year we kind of dropped a few points to them kind of teams again, but we were missing a lot of key players. So look, you can hope any team who have key players, you're hoping that they stay fit, but football, anything can happen in football, you just don't know really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's always sort of like the coming of age point of any sort of squad, is when you're moving on from not just pulling out the performances against the big teams, but it's grinding out the gritty 1-0s at places like West Brom and Sheffield United, and you're absolutely right. That's something that Man United just didn't do this season at all. And in the end, that's what cost them the league. If you look at the games that cost Man United the league, it's Everton, Crystal Palace, Sheffield United, and West Brom.
Yeah.
And that at the start of the season, if you're going to pick 4 games out that are going to cost Manchester United, you're going to probably pick Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal. But in terms of performance-wise, they played well there. And you're absolutely right. That's what Liverpool was like sort of at the end of the Rodgers era. And things like that. It was these drop in of easy points, but then performing against the big teams, and it's definitely something Klopp has turned around. Well, I certainly hope for my sake, because I've thoroughly enjoyed watching Liverpool get beat frequently last year. I hope they're absolutely nowhere near next year. What we are going to move on to is something a little bit different. I've tried to get this in for the last 3 weeks, is obviously talking about the newly promoted teams. We obviously all saw Brentford come up in that emotional playoff final, reaching the Premier League again. So I just want to talk a little bit about Brentford, Norwich, and Watford. Obviously, you've been in and around Championship teams before. You know how that sort of league works. It's changed a little bit now. Obviously, there's a lot more. There's a lot more money in the Championship now. A lot more teams willing to spend. In terms of the teams that have gone up, certainly looking at Norwich. I don't know how much you saw of Norwich last year, but what do you think of them? And do you fancy their chances of staying up, moving into the Premier League?
I watched a few of their games. Actually, they're a good football inside them. Their manager has been with them the last couple of years, so he has them playing good football. And like they're after losing Bundy and now to Aston Villa, so he's going to be a big loss. It's hard to know, really. You see the likes of Leeds coming up this year, they've done so well, but the other teams, they've kind of struggled really to get the grips with it's a big jump from the Championship to the Premier League, You're up against quality that'll punish any mistake you make, like where you might get away with it in the Championship. You make a few mistakes, they mightn't punish you as quick, and you see players talking about that. When they're up against the likes of Salah and all these kind of players, and any top player at the big 6, really, they do punish any little mistake anyone makes. So it is hard, and they do have to kind of spend a good bit of money to bring in a bit of more quality to the team that they already have, and keep that kind of core of group of lads that got promoted, but bring in more quality around that. But no, look, I always like to see the clubs do well coming up. Personally, I'd like to see Brentford do well. I like their manager, and I like the way he plays and stuff like that. And he've good players there. Like if he holds on to Tony and he gets in a few more players around him, and stuff like that, I do think I'd like to see them do well next year, to be honest. I'd like, just because they got promoted and they've been looking really to get promoted the last 2 years, really. They've only barely missed out, So I'd like to see them stay up and do well next season, really,
Yeah, and Brentford are obviously one of those clubs that play football the right way, and they sort of go about their business the right way as well. It's very much numbers based and stats based. I was watching a little documentary on them a couple of weeks ago, and it's very much everything's to do with their scouting system, and it's players that fit their system. It's nothing to do with names or anything like that. It's not who's the biggest and who's the best. It's who hits the numbers that sort of they're looking for. And you're absolutely right. They've got some great players. Ivan Toney, I hope he hits the ground running. I just hope he scores goals. He's a great striker to watch. He gets all sort of different goals as well. He reminds me a bit of Ollie Watkins. Obviously, they're easy comparisons to make. But just the way they score goals, he can score with his head, he can score with his right foot, he can score with his left foot. He takes a decent penalty as well. So they're going to be interesting to watch, definitely. Brentford. The only thing with Brentford is because of how they do their business, it's really hard to see sort of where they go and improve their squad, because they pull players from here, there, and everywhere. They'll get players in from anywhere, as long as they sort of hit their numbers. In terms of obviously the other two clubs, Norwich and Watford, they're going to be looking a lot more at Premier League proven talent. We've seen Norwich already this week. They've signed Milo Rashica from Werder Bremen. Apparently he had a very good season last season, not the season just gone, but the season before. Had a really good season with Werder Bremen. They've just been relegated, so he should be a good signing. Watford are linked with Cabral from Sporting, who seems a fantastic player from what I've seen. Watched 4 or 5 Sporting games at the end of the season after they'd won the league. So do you think that the way that Brentford do things, do you think that could leave them sort of behind, especially Watford and Norwich, because these are two clubs that have been here before and they'll spend the money to stay in?
Yeah, I do think it will be hard in a way, but they obviously believe in their philosophy, the way they go about things, and it has worked. They brought in your man. They brought in that Emiliano from Midtjylland and all that, and he looks a good
Yeah,
player too.
he
They
does.
do have real good technical players. They have, so I do think they they won't be worried about playing against teams in the Premier League because they're all technically good players. It's whether the more physical side of it, like you see with Leeds, they kind of run more than everyone else as well.
Yeah,
With that kind of quality up the other end too. So I think they'll do. I think they'll do quite well, to be honest. If it's kind of about how you start off. If you hit the ground, kind of pick up a few results early, it kind of gives you that bit of confidence and momentum. Geez, I can actually play in this league, and stuff
yeah,
like that. So
yeah,
it'll be, and the fact it's been so long since they were, you know, it's their chance to prove it in the big league now that they'll be chomping at the bit to get going. So. Look, I think they'll do quite well. I think, but yeah, look, Watford and them always have they seem to spend a bit of money when they do. They had like sort of Richarlison and all them there before,
yeah.
so they do spend a bit of money. So look,
Yeah,
I think
it looks like Norwich obviously are going to go and get Billy Gilmore as well on loan from Chelsea. I think that's a great
yeah,
signing. Obviously, being Scottish, played an excellent game against England, but he's just such players like that are just. I think if you come up and you can get a player sort of like that to come in and fit in your midfield, and that suits Chelsea's plan right down to the ground as well. Send Gilmore out somewhere like that where he's going to play consistently every week, and Gilmore should really kick on at Norwich, I would think.
yeah, they have a lot. Chelsea, they have nearly 40 players out on loan every season. They've some underage system and they've quality players in that kind of system as well. They always seem to bring through lads. So yeah, I think it'd be good for Gilmore. He's a quality player. He's so talented and he's after getting man of the match in most of his debuts that he's played, like Premier
Yeah,
League debut. Obviously with Scotland the other day in a big tournament like that against a big team, like and a big rival nations, and
Mhm.
he playing like that was, he could even be with a team that are miles better than Norwich. He could play with
yeah,
any of the top six teams, really.
absolutely. Well, he's been in there in
Just who gives him
Chelsea.
that chance to play?
Yeah, and he's been in
Yeah,
there in
but
Chelsea,
like
and he's never
as
been
in playing
embarrassing.
every week, no, he should play more. I think personally,
Yeah, I agree. And not just from Scottish
100%.
sort of bias. I do agree.
No,
Interesting question from. Yeah, sorry, sorry. Interesting question from Ailey here. Say, will Angus Gunn finally prove himself to be a good keeper? And said, just a prospect. Wherever he's been an understudy or a backup. Now, I believe Angus Gunn is signed for Norwich.
Norwich.
I think that's right. Yeah, he's signed for Norwich. He's played in Scotland and all that, and I think that's probably quite a fair comment of Angus Gunn. He's always been sort of, watch out for this. This guy's going to be good. He's going to be great.
Yeah.
And he's just sort of never kicked on. So
I think he's going back to Norwich is where he's from. I think I think they were saying that the other day. That's where like he's going back to his boyhood club or something. So maybe that might give him something to reignite his all the hype about him. So he's a good keeper. He's big lad, big presence about him. So look, I'd be hoping to see any player like that, any players that are having a tough time and they're going back to places where they're from or they're looking for a new challenge. You'd be hoping players like that do well because being in and around it, knowing how hard it is to break through and kind of everything you do seems to get criticised and stuff like that. So any player that does well, good on him. And you'd like to see him go off and do well and have a good career, because it's so hard to have a good career in football. So look, if he can go and make a name for himself there, fair play to him. And you're playing every week. That if he like they have Krul there as well. So if he breaks through, you have to kind of keep your spot then, So it'll be tough.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I reading earlier, I was looking at Norwich transfer stories and things like that. They seem to be linked with sort of one of Liverpool's players on loan as well, and Nico Williams. Because obviously Max Aarons is obviously linked with pretty much every big club every summer. He's been like with Bayern Munich, he's been like with Inter Milan now, he's been like with Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, the lot. But do you think a player like Nico Williams do you think that's what he needs? Do you think that's maybe the sort of move that he needs as a place like Norwich to just find his feet at the Premier League level?
Yeah, I do really, because like you look at the Liverpool side, Trent is very rarely ever out of the side, and he's not a player that picks up many injuries, so he's not going to get much opportunity really, you know. So, and they're not much of a gap in between their age either. So, like if I was coming from Nico Williams' point of view, you want to be getting out and playing every week and testing yourself to see can you actually play at this level. You know, it's all right going out doing it for 1 or 2 games, but doing it for like 20, 30 games, you know, then you're like, yeah, I can actually play at this level week in, week out, you know. So it would be a great move for him, you know. And like he obviously is a very good player. He's in and around the Welsh squad. Yeah. He played the other day against Italy and he done very well at left back, you know. So I think he should kind of, from his own point of view, really, it would be a good move for him to get out and play every week against the best players every week, you know. So I can see that happening, really.
Yeah, it'll give him another chance to kick on, because obviously he had that sort of baptism of fire getting chucked into the Liverpool first team last year. And he didn't do too badly. He didn't cause an embarrassment or anything like that, but he looked young, and there was obviously senior players that were in that league, even that weren't the very top players that targeted him and things. And there was obviously frailties and weaknesses to that. But no, it's certainly going to be interesting to watch sort of how all three get on. I would love Brentford to stay up, but I do think they're going to go down. I just don't. I don't see where they're going to get the quality unless Ivan Toney goes stratospheric and gets 20 goals again. But as you say, the jump from the Championship to the Premier League is massive. So they really need him to be firing. In terms of what do you think? Do you think all 3 teams will stay up, or do you think maybe a couple will go down, or what do you think?
I think probably the 3 that are going up will probably be the 3 to go down again, really. You know? It is a huge gap, you know, and I just like to see them do well, and really that's me heart to like to see Brentford do well, you know. But if you're really thinking about it properly, I don't think any of them will have quality to stay in the league for 38 games, you know. It's a long season and all the cup games and all that. Do they have the squad to really rest players for them kind of games and stuff? I don't think they do, really, you know. So, look, you'd like to see Brentford do well because of the way they operate. They're a good club. Definitely. You know, they don't splash money or stuff like that. They seem to produce good players, you know, and kind of give players the pathway into big-time football, you know. And this is what it's going to be now, because they don't really have much of a underage systems in Brentford, you know. They only had the under-23s, really, when we played against them before. Like, when they were at the Championship there about 5-6 years ago, they didn't really have heaps of underage teams, you know. They had this system where most of them, their second team was the under-23 team, you know. So you know, so they're after coming on a long way as a club, you know. So it'd be nice to see them actually stay in the league if they can, or put down a marker to say, look, Brentford are actually after coming on some load, and the way they operate, like maybe other teams might use the system they use, you know, they're not spending heaps of money, and they're probably gaining really money out of players that they sell, really, you know, and they built the new stadium and stuff like that. So they are going the right way, like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Brentford probably will be everyone's second team this season. I think I definitely think if there's someone that just generally the league want to see do well, it will be Brentford. Just moving on quickly to sort of our last topic, because Keane has pestered me for it, so I will drop him in about this. From a Liverpool point of view, obviously I'm a Man United fan. Keane's a Man United fan. A lot of people on this channel are Man United fans. From a Liverpool point of view, how do you think Man United's summer's looking, and sort of next season? What are you worried about it as a Liverpool fan, or is it just sort of like, are Man United now so far sort of out of the way that they're not a worry? What's sort of your opinion? Because as I say, I don't speak to Liverpool fans very often.
No, look, you kind of want I'd like most teams to improve, and you want it to be a tight league. You don't want teams running away with it all the time. So you want your rivals to get better players in. You know, I wouldn't be bitter that way. You'd like to see all the best players playing in the Premier League. I hope they get the likes of Sancho and stuff like that if they can, because it's going to make the league better, like, and it'll be more interesting, and it'll be tighter, where there'll be not just 2 teams, there'll be 4 teams
Yeah.
challenging for the league. It'd be better for even the rival fans. I know you'd be sweating more watching games and stuff like that. But look, it'd be better for the overall viewing of it, and seeing all the best players in the best league. Really, that's everyone wants to be playing in the Premier League now. Because they have the best players and they probably have most of the best managers as well.
Yeah, they definitely do. As much as sort of some people won't believe it, the Premier League is just by far and away the best league in terms of players and managers. Keane's obviously very excited about the possibility of Jadon Sancho joining. What I do want to touch on that sort of Sancho situation. As a Liverpool fan, obviously they tend to be a club that gets their business done. You saw it this season with Konate. It was very much bid in place, personal terms agreed, and they just went and paid the money and got it sorted. As a Liverpool fan, what do you think when you look at sort of how this Man United Sancho situation's gone? Obviously, we're now second year of chasing him. It looks like they're finally going to get him. Talks are that's going to be finalised this week. But as a Liverpool fan, do you just sort of sit and laugh and look at how Man United have done this, or is it more like why are they spending money and we're not, or what's the?
I just think that really Dortmund have been stubborn, really, and they're not going to push on what they're asking for that, and they're asking for that. They're not going to push on that unless or that and really above it. They want 90 odd million for him, or 80 odd million pounds, or whatever it is for him, and that's what they want from him. They're not going to take anything less. They're not going to take 1 million less, or they just want the asking price and that's what they're going to stand on that. And I think United want to put in a few add-ons and that, but they want nearly most of it up front, I think. So, look, they obviously he's obviously ripped it up over there, and he is a great player. I don't know why he's not getting much of a look in with the England side, to be honest. It's mad there. But if he did, he would be a good player if he got him, to be honest. He gives you that little bit more than what you have, really. You don't like playing outright. Like Greenwood is more going to be more of into a centre forward, really, and you want him kind of learning off Cavani there, like where he's kind of been playing off the right, which he's done really well out there, But Sancho is more of a winger that's more flair, and he has that bit more than Rashford. Just seems to just pace him behind, and if teams kind of drop off, he can't really break down teams because he don't have that ability to do it. Where I think Sancho has that flair and that bit of magic about him,
Yeah, he definitely does. And it certainly seems like an aura's been built around him over the last year of Man United fans. Every time he does something good or anything like that, it certainly seems like Man United fans need him now to come in and be a superstar. And they do, because the reality is that they're still miles off City, and in reality they'll probably still be miles off Liverpool because of how close Liverpool and City were. So they definitely sort of bring them in. Keane says a front three of Sancho, Greenwood and Rashford could be breathtaking. It could be in a few years, definitely.
Yeah, in a few years, definitely. It depends if Greenwood and them keep improving the way they have been, and like it's there in black and white, they will be a great front three down the line. But like, if you're spending that much money on Sancho, like, you need him to come in, hit the ground running straight away. Fans don't at big clubs. Fans don't give players time to settle in, really. Especially at Liverpool, United. Players get criticised for literally everything, so they have to really come in, hit the ground running straight away, because if they don't, they'll get criticised no matter how good they are.
You saw that very quickly with Thiago at Liverpool last year, didn't you? That he went from sort of Champions League winner to maybe not being the most dominant on the ball, and suddenly he wasn't sort of that level of player. Well, I think that does us for tonight. I'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much to you, Jack, for coming on and chatting all things football with me. It's been really, really good. Thank you to everyone in the comments as well for joining in. All your interaction has been absolutely fantastic. Perfect. Yep. So I believe there will be more shows coming up this week from the weekly Armchair Kickoff. So keep an eye on the socials, Twitter and Facebook and things like that as well. But that's everything from us. Cheers.
Cheers. Pleasure. Thanks.